Welcome to the 2024 New Jersey International Film Festival Filmmaker Interview Q&A series. We have two wonderful guests here today, as well as two of the judges from the film festival here to ask questions. But before I introduce them to you, I'd like you to know that our 29th annual New Jersey International Film Festival will be taking place between May 31st and June 9th on the beautiful campus of Rutgers University in Voorhees Hall, room 105, which is located adjacent to the Zimmerli Art Museum, is a block away from the New Brunswick train station at 71 Hamilton Street in New Brunswick, New Jersey. We'll be a hybrid festival this year, and we still have a lot of people watching online, and we didn't want to alienate them. So films are available online for 24 hours, and then there's an in-person show for just about all the films that we're screening. We selected 35 films from over 700 entries. So we're showing the creme de la creme. And the film that we're screening today is called The Featherweight, which is a wonderful mockumentary or faux documentary. I saw somebody write that. And we have the director, Robert Kolodny, here, as well as Bennett, Elliot, who's the producer, as well as Sarah Lopez and Morgan Kalmbach, who were festival judges. So welcome, everyone. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So, as the head honcho, I always get to ask the most inane question at the very beginning on the roots of the making of this film. Robert, since you're the director, could you tell us how you got involved in making this film?
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of it's been a long road for the Featherweight. The film originated with the father of our lead actor, James Matteo.
Hmm.
He is a guy from the Bronx and came across the story of Willie Pep, who was in the 1940s the featherweight champ of the world from 1942 to 1948. And he came across his story, and his son, James, was an actor, and he said, one day you should play Willie Pep. He's an East Coast guy, he's Italian American, and he has this great story. And James kind of took this to heart, and for years when he would be working on films, would go and would put up a picture of Willie Pep like on his mirror to keep the idea present. And about over a decade ago, he met up with Steve Loff, who is our screenwriter for the film,
Hmm.
and they started developing the idea. I came aboard in 2018 and started like crafting it with them and injecting more of the language of nonfiction into it. Bennett came aboard, and our whole team sort of galvanized around the project, and that's kind of how it came to be.
It's a really wonderful film. I mean, the cinematography is just amazing. I read about the shaky camera work. I think it's like the camera's a boxer, and it's boxing us into the scene. And it's not always like that, but I think it's just magical camera work. The cinematography is just luscious. You weave in 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter archival footage of the original. I mean, that's, I assume, is the Willie Pep, the real Willie Pep that's fused into your film. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. There's a lot of cinematic magic happening in those fight scenes, but yeah, we utilize real footage of the actual Willie Pep um, with the archival. And I mean, as you can see behind me, I'm a big collector of 8 millimeter and 16 millimeter, and love the form of celluloid and sort of working with that kind of medium. So it was really exciting to be able to collage these styles together.
And,
Uh,
and you do a great job. I mean, I think we run the only remaining Super 8 festival in the United States and North America. We've
that's
been doing
amazing.
it for as long as this festival, actually longer than that. But, we really are big film champions. And so was some of your film shot on film, or was it just the archival stuff?
Some of it was shot on film,
Yeah.
some of it was shot digitally, some we shot on an Aton Super 16 camera.
Hmm.
A lot of it was shot digitally on an Arri Alexa. Some of it was shot on the Vision Research Phantom high-speed camera. And so we're playing with form, which I think is exciting and appropriate for the film. Really, we're trying to like harken back to the language of like D.A. Pennebaker and
Yes.
Alan Maisels and like the great innovators of direct cinema. And so in the early 1960s, that was the cutting edge of independent filmmaking and nonfiction storytelling. And so I think utilizing these kinds um, of collage style forms sort of speaks to that spirit.
That's wonderful. And the fact that you mentioned D.A. Pennybaker, Penny, as we know him, he's participated in our festival 3 times. I
Amazing.
bought a print from Fraser, his son, of Don't
Amazing.
Look Back to screen in my class. So we're big fans of that kind of direct cinema look and that your film has. So I've hogged enough questions. Morgan, you get to ask the first one to these wonderful people.
Hello, it's very nice to meet you. One of the great things about the featherweight that I enjoyed was that there was the crew on set, which I felt like, along with the cinematography, really gave us a good look at these characters. I was wondering what inspired your decision to make this like a crew on set over just a plain documentary?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think um a bit of that was in the script, the idea of the unreliable narrator. And then once we were developing it more and more, especially in rehearsals with the actors, I would be giving them direction. And, at a certain point, we were like, all right, let's just like roll through it and start to play characters kind of. So I'm playing the character of the director in the film. You hear my voice
Mm.
throughout the film. My brother, Adam, is the cinematographer of the film, and he and I came up with these two characters, the Zupan brothers, and we wrote fictional biographies for them, and we sort of like were playing with the actors as well. And I think it resolves in a way that was really beneficial for the actors because we had this kind of like fluidity and style. We did a lot of improv. Bennett, as a producing, scheduling genius, built in time for us for each scene to have 30 minutes of improv at the top and at the bottom. So we would be able to get into these kind of present tense moments
Mm.
and have the characters occupying the space, have the crew occupying the space, and let it really feel like it's all coming together as it would in a nonfiction film. Bennett and I both have a background in documentary, and so I think we were bringing a lot of the process of that sort of modality of storytelling into what we were trying to do.
That's cool. I realized that you also were the DP for the Nan Golden documentary.
One of them, yes, I was one of the
One of
cinematograpers.
them, yes, that's
Yes.
true. So that's really wonderful credit to have under your belt. And so I guess I should ask a question of Bennett. So Bennett, tell us about what you did for this film as producer.
I think
Everything.
anyone that doesn't know what a producer does, I would say after you watch the film, producing is a lot like boxing. You're just constantly getting punched in the face and you have to keep getting up and solving the problem and moving on to the next thing. Obviously, I've been working with Rob for 15 years and a huge thing for any project, but this one in particular was building the crew. And luckily, we have a really strong support team of people that we've been working with since film school. So it was also creating an environment up in Connecticut where there's not a lot of resources and bringing a lot of stuff in, I think was one of the hardest parts. And also what Rob is saying is definitely true in terms of the challenge of structuring a shoot day for a fiction film with the kind of the flexibility that comes with making a documentary on a limited period 1960s budget.
But wow, it looks so great. The costumes, the costume designer there should be a definitely shout out to her. And she does a magical job. The actors are just amazing too. Ruby Wolf is just, you can't take your eyes off of her, as well as James Madio. I think he just looks so much like Willie Pep. I mean, I did track down an interesting biography by Mark Allen Baker, and I wondered if, I mean, obviously you had to read that in prep for the movie. Was that a reference point for you while making the film?
Definitely. I mean, in the research process, I read every piece of information that was available, and also just there's a lot of great literary writing around boxing in general, by people like Norman Mailer, Joyce Carol Oates. So there's just a history of sort of the one-to-one archetypal idea of like man against man in the ring, and then also man against himself. It's even in cinema, boxing has existed in cinematic imagery since Edison, right? There have always been images of boxers, so it's sort of inextricably tied to to the history of cinema and to the history of art. There's something in that dance. And I would shout out Steve Loff, our screenwriter, who even more so than I, like, did incredible research, and I would go as far as to say that he's probably the foremost expert on Willie Pep and maybe that whole era of boxing in the country. He's
And
just
I think also in addition to, all of the written works that are out there that we had to reference, I think part of our pre-production process was moving to Willie's town for 3 months before we started production, and just the sheer amount of people ranging in ages, everyone has a Willie Pep story. So I think so much of that, like on the ground storytelling, was also kind of woven into the script as Steve was workshopping things with Rob and Jim.
Very cool. All right, Sarah, your moment to ask a question.
Yes. So something that was just really impressive to me is just how much, like, watching the film, like, it really felt like it was in the 60s. So much so that I wasn't sure if it was like a real documentary or not for a while. Um, I wanted to know, like, what was the research process like for sculpting this, like, world?
That's a great question, and I really appreciate the compliment of mistaking it for a real documentary, because that is certainly the goal. I think you see a lot of films that use the sort of aesthetic of 1960s cinematography. Um, and it's something that is easy to fetishize and easy to, like, create sort of a facsimile of, but our guiding principle going into this was that it shouldn't feel like a facsimile. It should feel like the real
The
thing,
real thing.
not something that we're, like, merely paying homage with. It should be, like, fully imbued not only with the look and the style, the correct period appropriate dressings for the set, for the characters, but it should have the tactility of those films, the ethos of those films. The grain should, like, one to one be exactly what it would be at that time. We should be thinking about even digital cinematography, the way that the grain structure would work, the way that the colors would resolve, the way that the highlights and the shadows should work. In the sound mix, we went through and sound mixed it how you would mix a restoration of an old print. And we really, like, every step along the way, we're considering how to do this. In the editing, our editor, Robert Green, who's also an incredible documentary director, we went through and we scrutinized every cut so that it would function in the way that a nonfiction film of this era would function. We would study the way that Frederick Wiseman, would have like very short close up, then go into a long wide shot, or we would look at the way that Al Maisels would, like, shoot something backed into a corner, pick everything off, and then, like, punch in and move sort of like in this fashion. So built into, like, the way that things are framed, the geometry of the spaces, also um, the way that we interacted with the actors, like I said before, having these moments of improvisation built in, but also we lit all of our sets in 360 degrees out the windows. We would dress the sets in 360 degrees. So as this handheld camera sort of, like, itinerantly roves around the room, we can allow the actors to sort of move about in their homes, in their spaces as they would, not tied to preconceived blocking that is locking them in to something that precludes them from a impassioned moment.
Wonderful. Morgan, your turn.
Going off of the discussion about the documentary style, I feel like one of the things that, like, actors, like, as they grow, they have to get used to, like, being on camera and, like, obviously not looking into the camera. I was wondering about, like, the process that you had about, like, directing the actors in front of being comfortable with the camera and, like, directly looking into the camera and what that was like.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. That was a process, and it was different for each actor. Some of them were really innately comfortable with it. Some of the
I
more
think
veteran
for the
actors.
most part, it was really hard. It was really, really hard because we were really trying to, like, undo all of these influences that all of these actors have kind of built their careers fighting. And I'll let Rob talk about the specifics per person, but it was so hard for everyone. It was different, but it was really challenging.
Yeah, like, for people like Stephen Lang or Ron Livingston, I'd be like, yeah, then, just spike the camera. And they'd be like, What do you mean? No. So there was some habit breaking that had to happen.
Mm.
But it went both ways because there were a lot of non-professional actors in the movie. Like Ima Aiello, who plays Mama, had never acted before. We found her in the back of a barber shop because we were interviewing her husband because he used to cut Willie's hair in the 80s. And we found her and I was like, oh, she's perfect. We have to cast her. And she has never acted before. I think she does a terrific job in the film, but we're on set and she's just looking into the camera. She doesn't know that she shouldn't be. So there's sort of a dance in both directions, right? Breaking the more seasoned actors and getting them to become more playful, which doing the improv really helped.
Mm.
And then luring the non-professional actors into a space where they don't feel frightened by the artifice of the camera and can continue to be natural.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kept on flashing to Stanley Kubrick's first newsreel kind of film that he did with Walter Cartier, and it had that vibe too. Although, that's 16 millimeter, and he's still very green as a filmmaker. And then Flash to the Killer's Kiss, and then of course Raging Bull, and the references to so many of the other boxing films are present in your film too. Was that something consciously done, or?
I think they're baked into my tastes as a filmmaker.
Mm.
I love Raging Bull, obviously. It's one of the greatest films ever made. I love movies like Fat City, Champion with Kirk Douglas. There are so many incredible boxing films on the waterfront.
Yeah.
It was one of my earliest memories is watching On the Waterfront obsessively over and over again. But when we started making the film, I sort of swore off watching all boxing movies and I avoided them to not fall into any form of even inadvertent mimicry. So really, I was just watching nonfiction films from the 1960s. It was a lot of Grey Gardens and Salesmen and Titty Cut Follies, things like this. So I think like that language is in there up front. The boxing, it's just baked into my tastes, I guess. Yeah.
You do it so well though, like the rematch with Sadler at Yankee Stadium. I think it was Yankee Stadium, right? And the way that you're able to kind of block out the background and still weave it in with the archival footage is just magical. So kudos to you. Sarah, we have a time for a couple more questions.
Okay, so from the get-go, James, who's playing Willie, just like lights up the whole everything. I was wondering, what was the most fun sequence to film?
And Bennett, what do you think?
I think for me, I think it's the dinner scene. We had so much fun in that scene, and I feel like that's um one of the instances where the improv like really takes over. Like it's such a short scene on the page, but like once Ruby starts like making up stories and telling stories and fighting with her son and like that tension is there and Mama's just in the background, like I thought that was pretty fun. It's hard because it was such a fun movie to make. Like Rob, what would you say?
Um, for me, the Madison Square Garden scenes were really fun to construct because they were something that I think we were told would be impossible to do. And I feel like we came in with a really exciting plan on how to do it. We just shot that in like a small gym that we like blacked out behind. And I, was looking at old archival footage of fight films and newsreel and thinking about like, oh, they fight on a white canvas. So they're exposing to that white canvas. So everything else is just fall off. So like by that idea, if we just meter and expose to the white canvas and everything else is fall off, then we could sell this idea. So that was really exciting. And just seeing like the whole team come together and like we built the three rope ring. We like, yeah, I don't know. That was one of the more exciting things. But really working with the actors in general was so fun and playful and getting into this kind of like Cassavetes modality of like just being playful and occupying space as character was really just the best thing in the world.
The makeup person also should get a shout out too, because I mean, you know, the swollen eyes and the blood dripping down was really well done. And maybe you can give that person a shout out.
Definitely, yeah. Ray, who's the head of our makeup department, she did incredible work. Naomi, our costume designer, most of the pieces in the film are real vintage pieces from the 1960s that she sourced. And Sonia Foltarsh, who is our production designer, who made all of these spaces feel lived in and real. Um, Everybody just did an amazing job. Will Felker, our music supervisor, helped us get you know, the sonic landscape of the film seems like there isn't music, but there's like 44 individual songs in there, including that big one at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody just did such an incredible job.
It's just a wonderful ensemble piece. And I wanted to give full disclosure. Morgan is a filmmaker. She's in film school right now. And Sarah is an amazing graphic artist. And they're both two of my absolute wonderful students. I mean, they're A+ students. And they really loved your film. That's why I think they'll do an excellent job reviewing it when it comes out. I would like to take this opportunity now to share screen, to share how people can buy tickets. And so let me see how to do this. And you think after 150 of these, you would know how to do it the right way. Okay, so we share screen. And normally the way folks would purchase tickets for our festival was they would go to our homepage, which is njfilmfest.com. And once you would get there, everything would be here. But because of the pandemic, we merged with Eventive, which is our streaming provider. And we were one of the first festivals to do that. I called up some of my festival director friends in other parts of the country, and we said, use Eventive. Okay, we'll use Eventive. Well, in the background, you see Voorhees Hall. This is actually a photograph of the building the film will be shown for the in-person screening. But when you get to the welcome page, you can scroll down or you can just click current events. And this is our holding page for the International Film Festival and just basically tells you when it's going to be taking place. So you absolutely must click that buy tickets button, which bounces you to our Eventive page, which is structured with 5 red buttons. Each one of them are worth an exploration. The key one is the tickets and screenings one, because that's where you'll purchase tickets. And everything is divided by subject matter. So documentary has its thread, and narrative feature, shorts, animation, experimental. And then, of course, there's a coming soon button. So we have narrative feature here. The Featherweight is the first narrative feature we'll be screening, which will be online for 24 hours only in New Jersey. That's something that we did as a courtesy, because I know you guys are going to be releasing your film sooner or later, and we can talk a little bit about that too. But if you want to buy tickets, you hit the pre-order button. If you've never bought a ticket at our festival, you'll have to register. It takes 30 seconds to register, and then you can purchase the ticket. The ticket itself is $15, and that allows you admission to the in-person screening. And if you live in New Jersey, that also means that you can watch the film online. And we have a number of really wonderful cinephiles who will watch the film during the day, and then they'll know that the filmmaker is coming, and then come and watch it again in the evening and ask questions of the filmmakers. And both Robert and Bennett will be at the in-person show, which will take place at 7 p.m. on June the 1st. So once you've clicked on that button, I take you back to the festival site. You can click on the film guide to get information about each and every one of the films that we're showing. Each one of them is wonderful in its own right. You can click on the Featherweight. You can see the picture behind me, and now you can see Willie Pep, well, at least James playing Willie Pep in the background, so you can see him because I've been blocking him the whole time with my big head. And so you can purchase tickets here by select a showing. There's only one show. And once you've done that, you could go and check the menu page, go back to the welcome page, scroll down. And if you're coming to the in-person screening, you want to absolutely register your car so you can park for free in the adjacent university lots. It doesn't cost anything. You can also get driving directions and things like that on the welcome page. But if you want a good old-fashioned schedule with just text, you can find it here. Scroll down and you can see that the Featherweight is playing on June 1st, online for 24 hours and in person at 7 p.m. And that's basically an overview. One last thing I'll point out, which doesn't have much to do with the featherweight, but you can buy an all-access pass. You want to see everything. You want to save some money. You get the all-access pass. It's like half price. And that includes access to the Marissa Nadler concert. We're actually expanding the festival to do audio-visual presentations. So there'll be a concert with visuals. This is the second one we're doing. And it's a kind of dream come true because Marissa Nadler is so wonderful. I have all of her albums, and she's agreed to come from Nashville to do this show. So it should be a lot of fun. And you can get more information on our website. I go back to the welcome page, and you can see the buttons are what you want to push when you get there. I'm going to stop sharing and just ask you, what's the future for this film? What is it looking like?
Well, we've got a couple of festivals coming up this summer that we're excited to go to in the US and internationally. And our sales agents are working around the clock to try to sell the movie. So hopefully it'll be in a theater for people to see soon enough.
Yeah, it definitely should be. I mean, it's a magical film. It's very enjoyable. It's not really just a boxing film. I think you're looking at a cinematic masterpiece, a film that has a wonderful palette of colors, costuming, performances. It's a unique film in many ways, just in the way it's presented. I mean, I thought you could have made a documentary of this film, and it would have served a similar purpose in some ways in terms of informing people about Willie Pep, but you are able to make it into a really wonderful feature and to have creativity and fun in making the film as well. And it's very evident. So mazel tov to both of you.
Thank you so much. That means the world to hear.
I want to thank you both for hanging out. Don't leave after we say goodbye to our audience. Same for you, Sarah and Morgan. Thanks so much for asking questions. And folks, please join us for the New Jersey International Film Festival. It's a labor of love. I founded this festival back in 1996. We got a challenge grant from the Geraldine Dodge Foundation, as well as an amalgam of foundations throughout New Jersey. And I thought, can we do an international film festival in New Jersey? This was before Montclair, before Garden State. We kind of were trailblazers in the festival scene in many ways. And so we're really proud that it's still moving forward, and we're doing some wonderful things and showing some wonderful indie films. No multiplex fare here, at least they're all premiere screenings. So come and join us. And thank you so much for watching. Thanks you guys for coming too.
Thank you.